she was 9 years old, her mother began calling up men on the CB radio and having them over for sex. Judith felt extremely neglected, so she would escape to the woods near her house, staying out for long stretches of time. Alvin, however, was often described as a charmed life. He had a loving family and no indication also talking to a man going by the handle Nightrider on a CB radio, and that the man referred to her as Lady Sundown. Lady Sundown told Nightrider that she had picked up a couple new friends and that they should all meet up. John says the woman then drove out to a rural area where they met up with a man named Nightrider who was driving his own car. He says they